The galaxy's undefeated apex predator shoved a human officer. 3 seconds later he was airborne and he still doesn't know how she threw him.
Huh.
I have seen a lot of things in my 300 cycles as a communications officer on Station Meridian 7. I have watched trade disputes turn into armed standoffs. I have seen diplomatic incidents that nearly started wars. I have even witnessed a Throlian ambassador accidentally insult a Vex matriarch by compliment, which, trust me, takes a special kind of talent. But nothing, and I mean absolutely nothing, prepared me for the day Vectel the unyielding met Officer Jade Reeves. Station Meridian 7 floats in neutral space right on the border between 3 different territorial claims. It is the kind of place where you check your weapons at the door, keep your politics to yourself, and try not to start anything that might get everyone sucked out into the void. The station handles maybe 2,000 ships a week, everything from small courier vessels to massive cargo haulers that look like flying cities. It is organized chaos at the best of times, and on this particular day, well, chaos was about to get a whole lot more interesting. Vectel was Kralith, which, if you are not familiar with galactic species classifications, means he was essentially a walking nightmare wrapped in scales and bad attitude. The Kralith are apex predators from a world where everything, and I mean everything, is trying to kill everything else. They stand around 8 feet tall, built like they are carved from stone and aggression. Their home world has gravity 0.8 times what most species consider normal, so they are strong, stupidly strong, the kind of strong where they can bend steel support beams for fun. And Vecta, he was not just any Kralith, he was their undefeated arena champion. 43 consecutive victories in solo combat across 7 different worlds. He had a reputation that preceded him by several star systems. When Vecthar wanted something, people tended to just give it to him and hope he left quickly. His ship, the Crimson Talon, was a beauty if you like your spacecraft designed to intimidate. All sharp angles and weapon ports, painted in the traditional Kralith war colors. It came screaming into our sector demanding, not requesting, immediate priority docking at Bay. Never mind that Bay 12 was occupied. Never mind that there were 17 other ships in the queue ahead of him. Never mind station regulations that everyone had agreed to follow. Vecthar wanted Bay 12, and Vecthar was used to getting what he wanted. Now, here is where things get interesting. See, humans had only been part of the galactic community for about 15 cycles. They were the new kids on the block, and most species were still trying to figure them out. They came from some backwater planet called Earth, brought almost nothing to the table in terms of military might or resources, and seemed way too friendly for anyone's comfort. The general consensus: harmless, soft, probably not going to last long in galactic politics. The humans had drawn security duty on Meridian 7 as part of some integration program, proving they could handle neutral ground operations. Most species figured it was a low-risk assignment. What could possibly go wrong with traffic control? Officer Jade Reeves was the shift supervisor that day. She was human, which meant she stood about 5.5 feet tall, maybe 130 pounds soaking wet. She had dark hair pulled back in a regulation bun, brown eyes that seemed perpetually unimpressed, and a voice that came through the comm system with the kind of calm that made you think she had seen it all and was not particularly excited about any of it. When Vectar's demand came through, Jade responded in about 3 seconds flat. Her voice was professional, polite even, almost bored. Crimson Talon, negative on priority docking. Bay 12 is occupied, and you have 17 vessels ahead of you in queue. Estimated docking clearance is 4 hours. Bay 34. Please proceed to holding pattern Delta 7 and await further instruction. There was a long pause on the other end. Then Vectar's voice came through, and let me tell you, that voice could make grown Vex warriors reconsider their life choices. Deep, resonant, carrying the kind of threat that did not need to be spoken out loud. I am Vecthar of Kralth. I do not wait. Jade's response came back without even a heartbeat of hesitation. Crimson Talon. All vessels follow station protocol. No exceptions. Delta 7, please. And that, my friends, is when Vecthar decided he needed to handle this situation personally. So, Vector decided that station regulations were more like suggestions, and he forced his ship into an authorized docking sequence at Bay 9. Just pushed right past a Centaurian freight hauler and locked his clamps onto the station like he owned the place. The Centaurian captain was screaming over the comm. The docking computer was throwing up about 15 different violation warnings, and somewhere in traffic control, alarms were going off like it was festival day. Jade's voice came back over the station-wide channel, still calm, still professional, still sounding like she was ordering lunch instead of dealing with a massive breach of protocol. Crimson Talon, you are in violation of station docking procedures. Disengage immediately or security will be authorized to use force. You have 30 seconds to comply. I was watching the security feeds from my station, and let me tell you, I have never seen anyone just ignore a direct order with such confidence. Vektar's response was not even verbal. He just opened his airlock and started walking toward the main security checkpoint with 4 of his crew members trailing behind him like an entourage of doom. Now, I need you to understand something about Kralith physiology. These beings are not just big, they are apex predators who evolved on a planet where diplomacy means you killed the other guy slightly less brutally than he was trying to kill you. Vektar stood 8 feet tall, easy. His scales were deep crimson with black striping along his spine, traditional war markings that indicated his arena status. His arms were thick as cargo pylons, corded with muscle that bunched and flexed with every step. He had claws that could rip through hull plating, teeth that belonged in nightmare fuel, and eyes that glowed a faint amber in the station lighting. He wore minimal armor, because honestly, when you are built like a living tank, what are you protecting? Just a chest plate with his arena championships etched into the metal. 43 tallies that caught the light as he moved. His crew behind him were not small either. All Kralith, all warriors, all looking like they had never heard the word no in their entire lives. They reached the security checkpoint at Section Delta, where Jade was stationed with 2 other human officers. I switched my feeds to get a better angle, because this was either going to be the shortest confrontation in station history or something worth recording for the incident report. Jade stood there, hands clasped behind her back, regulation security uniform neat and pressed, looking up at Vektar with the same expression I imagine she used when reviewing cargo manifests. Unimpressed, maybe slightly annoyed at the interruption. The size difference was, let me be diplomatic here, significant. Vektar could have picked her up with one hand, probably could have picked up all 3 human officers without breaking a sweat. He loomed over her, using every inch of his height to maximum intimidation effect, and his crew fanned out behind him in a classic predator formation. You, Vektar said, his voice rumbling like distant thunder, will grant me access to Bay 12. Jade tilted her head slightly, the way you might when considering whether to have tea or coffee. No, she said simply, you will return to your vessel, disengage from Bay 9 and proceed to your assigned holding pattern. Alternatively, you will be escorted off this station in restraints. Your choice. One of Vektar's crew members made a sound that might have been a laugh, if laughing sounded like gravel in a processing unit. Vektar himself leaned down, bringing his face closer to Jade's level. His teeth, and there were a lot of them, were very visible. I have killed champions of 17 worlds, he said, each word deliberate and heavy. I have stood in arenas where the weak are consumed and the strong take what they wish. I do not follow the rules of prey species who hide behind desks and regulation. Jade did not blink, did not step back, did not even shift her weight. That is fascinating, she said, her tone suggesting it was anything but. Unfortunately for you, this is not an arena. This is a neutral station with established protocols that everyone, including arena champions who apparently have not learned how to wait in line, must follow. Oh, I saw it then. The shift in Vektar's posture, the way his shoulders tensed. He was used to beings cowering, backing down, apologizing profusely and giving him whatever he wanted just to make him go away. Jade was doing none of those things. She was standing there like she had all day, like an 8-foot killing machine was just another item on her checklist. You dare, Vektar growled, and his hand came up, one massive clawed finger pointing at her face, to speak to me this way. You, barely worth noticing. Your species has been in the stars for what, a handful of cycles. You are nothing. Less than nothing. Jade's expression finally changed. One eyebrow went up just slightly. Are you done? She asked. Because I have actual work to do, and your tantrum is disrupting station operations. The other human officers I noticed had not moved, had not reached for weapons, had not called for backup, had not done anything except stand there with the same vague professional boredom. Like this happened every day, like 8-foot apex predators throwing their weight around was just another shift rotation. Vektar's eyes narrowed, his crew shifted, waiting for his signal. The entire checkpoint had gone quiet, other travelers backing away slowly, because everyone with functional survival instincts could feel what was about to happen. Step aside, Vektar said, his voice dropping to something dangerous and low. Last warning, human. Jade crossed her arms. No. And that is when Vektar made the biggest mistake of his considerably violent life. Vektar reached out with one massive hand and shoved Jade aside, not gently, not a little push to make a point. He put force behind it, the kind of casual, contemptuous shove that said she was an obstacle, nothing more, Barely worth the energy expenditure. His palm connected with her shoulder and he pushed, expecting her to stumble, to fall, to get out of his way like every other being with functional survival instincts would do. Jade took exactly 3 steps back, absorbed the momentum and stopped. Her boots scraped against the deck plating with a sound that seemed way too loud in the sudden absolute silence that had fallen over the checkpoint. Everyone froze, and I mean everyone. The other travelers waiting in the security line, the station personnel at their posts, Vector's own crew. Even the automated cargo loaders seemed to pause mid-operation, because in all of galactic civilization, in all the protocols and regulations and treaties that governed neutral stations, there was one rule that everyone understood. You do not put your hands on station security. Vector seemed completely oblivious to the fact that he had just crossed about 15 different lines simultaneously. He took a step forward, clearly intending to just walk past Jade and her team like they were furniture. Like the matter was settled, like physical intimidation had won the day, as it probably had for him countless times before. Jade straightened her uniform with one hand, tugged her sleeve back into place, and spoke in that same calm, almost conversational tone. Sir, I am going to give you one opportunity to return to your vessel voluntarily. What you just did constitutes assault on station personnel, which carries an automatic 30-day detention and permanent ban from Meridian 7. If you leave now, we will downgrade it to a docking violation and a fine. Last chance. Vector stopped, turned around, and laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. It was the kind of laugh that apex predators make when something small and stupid has amused them right before they eat it. His crew joined in, a chorus of deep rumbling mockery that echoed through the checkpoint. You threaten me, Vector said, spreading his arms wide. You, who I could break with one hand. You soft, weak prey species thing. Your entire planet would not last one season on Krauth. You have no claws, no natural weapons, no strength worth mentioning. You are nothing but meat that learned to talk. He took another step toward her, leaning down again, invading her space deliberately. I will walk through this station as I please. I will take what I want, and if you try to stop me again, little human, I will show you why 43 challengers never rose from the arena floor after facing me. Jade looked up at him, sighed. It was the kind of sigh that suggested deep, profound exhaustion with the universe and everything in it. Okay, she said quietly, your choice. And then she moved. I have watched the security footage maybe 100 times since it happened, and I still cannot quite figure out the physics of what Jade did next. She stepped inside Vector's reach, got under his center of gravity and did something with her hips and legs that involved leverage and angles that should not work when you are dealing with a 400-pound apex predator. But it did work. Jade grabbed Vector, twisted, and lifted. For a split second, all 8 feet and 400 pounds of undefeated arena champion were completely off the ground, his expression shifting from contempt to confusion to something that might have been the beginning of fear. And then Jade threw him. Not pushed, not shoved. Threw. Vector went airborne. He sailed backward through the checkpoint, arms windmilling, that amber glow in his eyes wide with disbelief. Traveling a good 10 feet before gravity remembered it had a job to do, he crashed into a stack of cargo containers with a sound like a percussion orchestra having a catastrophic failure, metal booming and echoing through the entire section. The containers shifted, groaned, and one toppled over sideways with another tremendous crash. The silence that followed was profound, religious, almost. Vector lay there in the wreckage, cargo netting draped over his shoulders like decorative trim, surrounded by scattered shipping cricks and his own shattered dignity. His crew stood frozen, mouths open, staring at their undefeated champion like they were witnessing reality itself having a malfunction. Jade brushed off her hands, adjusted her uniform again, and looked at the other 2 human officers. Jenkins, call medical. We need a scan team down here for injuries. Rodriguez, impound the Crimson Talon and file assault charges. Standard 30-day detention protocol. Yes, ma'am. Both officers responded in unison, like this was the most normal thing they had done all day. Vector struggled to his feet, scales scraping against metal, his movements slow and uncoordinated. He was staring at Jade with an expression I had never seen on a Kralith face before. Confusion. Complete, total, absolute confusion. Like the fundamental laws of the universe had just rewritten themselves without asking his permission. You, he managed, his voice hoarse. How did you? What? Jade walked toward him, slow and deliberate, her boots clicking on the deck plating. She stopped about 5 feet away, hands on her hips, looking up at him with that same unimpressed expression. Sir, you are under arrest. You have the right to remain silent, and honestly I recommend you exercise it. You will be detained in holding cell 7 until your hearing, Any further resistance will result in additional charges. Do you understand these rights as I have explained them? Vector just stared at her. Behind him, station security. The real backup with weapons and restraint fields came jangling around the corner, about 15 officers from various species, all of them sliding to a stop when they saw Vector already down and Jade standing there looking mildly annoyed at best. One of them, a Vex I think, said slowly. Do you need assistance, Officer Reeves? We are good here, Jade said without looking away from Vector. Just need an escort to holding. Subject is compliant. Was he compliant? Well, Vector was not fighting. He was not doing much of anything except standing there like someone had replaced his brain with a malfunctioning navigation computer. His crew had not moved either, all of them apparently trying to process what they had just witnessed. And the security footage? Oh, that spread through the station network faster than a reactor breach warning. Within 10 minutes, every terminal, every personal device, every screen in every bar and shop and docking bay was showing the loot cake there. The unyielding, undefeated arena champion of 43 worlds, getting picked up and thrown like cargo by a human woman who barely came up to his chest. The betting pool started immediately. The commentary was, let me say, enthusiastic. And somewhere in the station's administrative offices, I imagine several people were having very interesting conversations about what exactly humans were capable of. But all of that came later. In that moment, in that checkpoint, there was just Jade, Vector, and the slowly dawning realization across the entire station that maybe, just maybe, everyone had seriously underestimated these new humans. Vector spent exactly 4 hours in holding cell 7 before his rage found its voice again. And when it did, oh when it did, you could hear it 3 sections away. Combat challenge. His roar echoed through the detention level, rattling the force fields, and making several other detainees visibly nervous. I invoke formal combat challenge. Single combat, witnessed by the old laws. Now, here is the thing about formal combat challenges. They are outdated, mostly ceremonial, and hardly anyone uses them anymore because civilization has generally moved past solving disputes by beating each other senseless. But they are still technically legal under Galactic Council regulations, a holdover from when species first started interacting and needed some framework for settling disputes that did not involve planetary bombardment. Station Administrator Kelvos, a Mytherian with more patience than sense and far too many years dealing with incidents exactly like this, came down to the detention level personally. She had 4 eyes, all of them looking tired, and her translator implant carried the tone of someone who had already filled out way too much paperwork today. Champion Vector, she said, her voice carrying that special kind of diplomatic exhaustion. Perhaps we can resolve this matter without further escalation. You assaulted a station security officer. The penalties are clear. Accept the detention, pay the fine, and we can all move forward with our lives. Vector slammed his fist against the force field, making it flicker and buzz. My honor has been damaged, my reputation destroyed. That human, she humiliated me in front of witnesses. I demand satisfaction. Single combat to submission or surrender, witnessed by the station population. It is my right under council law. Kelvos' upper 2 eyes closed slowly, a Mytherian expression that roughly translated to why do I even bother? Officer Reeves would have to accept, she pointed out, and she is under no obligation to do so. Then she is a coward, Vector roared. She hides behind regulations and law because she knows that what happened was luck, a fluke. It will not happen twice. The security footage by this point had achieved what I can only describe as viral immortality. It was playing on loop, in every bar, every common area, every recreational space on the station. I watched beings from 40 different species huddled around screens, rewatching the moment of Vector's impromptu flight again and again. The commentary was ruthless, creative, and in some cases should probably have been censored. Vector's crew, to their credit or perhaps their shame, were not helping matters. They had scattered throughout the station trying to explain, justify, contextualize what had happened, but with every telling it just sounded worse. Their undefeated champion, their apex warrior, had been thrown like a shipping crate by someone a third his size. The betting pools were already running. Station residents were wagering on everything. Whether Jade would accept, who would win if she did, how long the fight would last, whether Vector would actually land a hit. The odds were surprisingly not as one-sided as you might think. A lot of beings figured Jade had gotten lucky, caught him off guard, used surprise and technique to compensate for the massive physical disadvantage. But there were others, particularly some of the more informed species, who were looking at humans with new eyes, calculating eyes, because information had started circulating. Data that most species had not bothered to check when humans first arrived on the galactic stage. Earth, it turned out, was classified as a death world. High gravity 1.0 standard, extreme temperature variations, aggressive microbial life, predators at every level of the food chain. Humans had not evolved in a garden paradise. They had clawed their way to the top of a planetary hierarchy that killed 99% of species before they developed tool use. Humans were endurance hunters. They had evolved to chase prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. Their bones were dense, their muscles efficient, their pain tolerance absurdly high. They healed fast, adapted faster, and had a stress response that basically turned them into combat-ready units when threatened. And Jade? Jade had grown up in Earth's 1.0 gravity, spending her entire life carrying around her own body weight in a way that Krolith from their 0.8 gravity world never had to manage. When Kelvos brought the combat challenge request to Jade, the human officer was in the security break room, drinking something called coffee that smelled like industrial solvent and apparently was considered a mild stimulant. "He wants to fight you," Kelvos said, skipping the diplomatic preamble because honestly, what was the point? Formal combat challenge. Non-lethal to submission or surrender. You can decline. Jade took a sip of her coffee, considered for a moment, then shrugged. "Sure," she said. "When?" Kelvos' primary eyes blinked rapidly. You are accepting. You understand he is a trained arena champion. He has killed beings in sanctioned combat. Non-lethal, right? Jade said. Demonstration bout under station rules? Yes. But, then I accept. Tomorrow work. I am off shift at 1400. Kelvos stared at her, all four eyes wide. You are very confident. Jade smiled. Just a little. Administrator. With respect, I have 3 brothers, all of them bigger than me. I grew up fighting, and Vector has a tell. A tell. He drops his right shoulder before he moves. Every time. It is very obvious once you notice it. And just like that, the match was set. Station training facility level 9 tomorrow at 1500 hours. Open viewing because at this point half the station was going to show up anyway and it was better to make it official than have everyone crowding the security feeds. Vector, when informed that Jade had accepted, actually smiled for the first time since the checkpoint incident. It was not a nice smile. It was the smile of a predator who had just been given permission to do what he did best. He spent the rest of the day in the detention gym, a special reinforced area designed for high-mass species to maintain their physical conditioning. He ran through combat drills, practiced strikes against reinforced dummies, worked himself into a focused rage that would have terrified any sensible being. His crew gathered to watch, their confidence returning. This was familiar territory. This was what Vectelvor did. In a proper fight, with rules and structure and space to move, there was no way some small human could repeat her earlier success. It had been luck, surprise, a moment of carelessness. It would not, could not happen again. The betting odds shifted slightly in Vector's favor as word spread of his preparation, his focus, his absolute certainty. But there were still those other bets, smaller pools, quiet wagers between beings who had done their research, who understood what humans were, where they came from, what they were capable of. Those bets were on Jade, and the payouts, well, the payouts were going to be substantial. Me? I made sure my communication station had a perfect feed to the training facility. I was not missing this for anything. This was either going to be the biggest upset in station history, or confirmation that the universe still made sense and physics still mattered. Either way, it was going to be one for the records. The training facility on level 9 was designed to accommodate heavy combat species, which meant reinforced floors, high ceilings, and impact-resistant walls that could theoretically survive a small explosion. By 1445, every viewing gallery was packed, and I mean packed. Beings were standing on each other, hanging from railings, pressing against the transparent aluminum barriers to get a better view. I counted at least 30 different species in the crowd. Vex warriors with their crystalline armor, Centaurian traders who had apparently abandoned their cargo schedules, Throlian diplomats who were definitely supposed to be in meetings, even a few Metherians who normally avoided anything resembling violence. The noise was incredible, a mixture of vocalizations, translator overlays, and the general buzz of several hundred beings all talking at once. The betting terminals were doing record business. Final odds had settled at roughly 60-40 in Vector's favor, which honestly showed more respect for Jade than I expected. Apparently enough beings had watched the checkpoint footage enough times to think she might have a chance. Vector entered first, and the crowd noise shifted, got louder. He wore minimal armor, just like in the arena fights he was famous for. Chest plate, arm guards, Nothing that would restrict movement. His scales gleamed under the facility lights, that deep crimson with black war markings looking freshly polished. He rolled his shoulders, stretched his neck, and the muscles moved under his scales like tectonic plates shifting. He looked ready. He looked confident. He looked like someone who had spent the last 24 hours convincing himself that yesterday had been a fluke and today was going to restore his reputation. Jade entered from the opposite door, and the crowd noise changed again, got quieter, more uncertain. She wore standard security combat gear, flexible polymer armor over a compression suit, nothing fancy. Her hair was still pulled back in that regulation bun. She looked calm, professional, like she was showing up for a training exercise rather than a formal combat challenge with an apex predator who had publicly sworn to humiliate her. Station Administrator Kilvos stood at the center of the mat, her four eyes moving between the two combatants. "This is a formal demonstration bout under station regulations," she announced, her voice amplified through the facility speakers. "Non-lethal combat to submission or surrender. No weapons, no lethal techniques, no strikes to vital areas. Medical teams are standing by. Combatants, do you understand the rules?" "Yes," Jade said simply. "I understand," Vectau growled. His eyes locked on Jade with an intensity that would have melted hull plating. "Then take your positions." They moved to opposite sides of the mat, maybe 20 feet apart. The crowd went silent, hundreds of beings holding their breath collectively. Calvos raised one hand, paused, then dropped it. "Begin." Vector exploded forward with a speed that should not have been possible for something his size. He closed the distance in maybe 2 seconds, coming in with a combination strike that had probably ended dozens of arena fights before they really started. Right claw high, left claw sweeping low, designed to overwhelm and crush. Jade was not there. She slipped sideways, let his momentum carry him past, and his claws hit nothing but air. Vector spun, snarling, adjusted, came at her again. Another combination, faster this time, multiple strikes flowing together in a sequence that showed years of training and combat experience. Jade blocked, deflected, moved. She was not trying to match his strength, not trying to stop his attacks head-on. She was redirecting them using angles and timing, making him work for every inch. His right claw came in. She shifted her weight and guided it past her shoulder. His left followed. She ducked under it and his knuckles scraped against the mat with a sound like grinding metal. The crowd was making noise again, but it was different now. Uncertain, confused, because Vector was attacking with everything he had. Combinations that should have connected, should have ended this, and Jade was just not there. Every time, flowing around his strikes like water, giving ground when she needed to, holding it when she could. Vector's frustration was visible, building with each missed attack. His strikes got harder, faster, more aggressive. He was putting more power behind them, which meant he was burning energy. And in any extended fight, energy management matters. A lot. 3 minutes in, maybe 4, Vector tried to grapple, lunging forward to grab Jade and use his massive strength advantage to just end this. His hands closed on nothing. Jade had dropped low, rolled, came up behind him, and delivered a sharp kick to the back of his knee. Not hard enough to injure, but hard enough to make the joint buckle slightly, throw off his balance. Vector roared, spun, backhanded where he thought she would be. She had already moved, circling left, her breathing controlled, steady. She was not even winded yet. Vector, on the other hand, was breathing harder, not exhausted, not yet, but working, really working. 5 minutes. 6. The pattern continued. Vector attacked. Jade defended, redirected, avoided. She was learning his rhythm, his patterns that tell she had mentioned about his right shoulder. Every time he prepared to strike, there it was, a tiny dip that telegraphed his intention. Once you saw it, you could not unsee it. And then at minute 7, Jade stopped retreating. Vector came in with another combination, and this time Jade met him. Not head-on, not strength against strength, but she engaged. She blocked his right claw, trapped it against her forearm, used the contact point to pivot and drove her elbow into his ribs. The armor absorbed most of it, but the impact was there, solid, real. Vector's eyes widened slightly. That had hurt. Not much, but enough to notice. Jade did not give him time to process. She flowed into another strike, low kick to his forward leg, forcing him to adjust his stance, then a palm strike to his center mass, pushing him back, then another combination, faster now, not defensive but offensive, and suddenly Vector was the one reacting instead of acting. The crowd noise reached a new level. Beings were shouting, cheering, making sounds that did not translate. Because this was not supposed to be happening. Vektal was the undefeated champion. He did not get pushed back. He did not get put on the defensive. But he was now. Jade pressed the advantage, her movements precise, efficient. She was not wasting energy on flashy techniques or unnecessary flourishes. Every strike had purpose. Every movement calculated. She went for his legs, making him move, making him work to maintain balance. She targeted his breathing, quick strikes to his lower ribs that made him grunt, made him protect, made him react. 8 minutes in, Vektal was breathing hard. His movements were slower, his reactions delayed by fractions of a second. The high-gravity human, built for endurance, for long hunts, for chasing prey across continents, was barely sweating. Her breathing was elevated, sure, but controlled, steady. Vektar tried to reset, create distance, catch his breath. Jade did not let him. She stayed close. Main pressure kept him working. Another low kick made him stumble slightly. A quick combination to his right side made him turn, expose his back for a split second. That was all Jade needed. She moved in fast, got behind him and did something complicated with leverage and body mechanics that involved hooking his leg, controlling his arm, and using his own weight against him. Vektal went down. Hard. The mat booming with the impact. Before he could recover, Jade had his arm locked, her body position controlling his movement, her weight, small as it was, applied at exactly the right points to make escape impossible without serious injury. It was a perfect pin. Textbook. The kind of thing you see in martial arts demonstrations where everything goes exactly right. Vektar struggled, tried to power out of it. His muscles bunched, his scales scraped against the mat. Nothing happened. He could not move, could not get leverage, could not do anything except lie there while the reality of his situation sank in. Yield, Jade said quietly, her voice calm despite the exertion. Or I dislocate your shoulder. Your choice. The crowd had gone absolutely silent again. You could have heard a cargo pin drop. Vektal lay there breathing hard, his face pressed against the mat, and for a long moment I thought he might actually refuse, might actually let her injure him rather than admit defeat. His pride, his reputation, everything he was had just been dismantled in front of hundreds of witnesses. But then, slowly, with a sound that might have been a sob or might have been something else entirely, he tapped the mat 3 times. The universal signal for submission. Jade released him immediately, rolled away, came to her feet in one smooth motion. She stepped back, giving him space, her posture relaxed but ready in case he tried something stupid. Vektar stayed down for a moment longer, then slowly, painfully pushed himself up. He knelt there on the mat, staring at his hands like he had never seen them before. Like they belonged to someone else. His crew in the viewing gallery looked equally stunned, frozen in place, unable to process what they had just witnessed. Kilvos moved forward, her voice careful, diplomatic. Submission acknowledged. Officer Jade Reeves is the victor. The crowd exploded. Not with disappointment, not with anger, but with noise. Pure chaotic, multi-species noise that was part shock, part excitement, part disbelief. Beings were gesturing wildly, arguing, celebrating, commiserating. The betting terminals were processing payouts that were going to make some very happy and some very upset individuals. And in the center of it all, Jade walked over to Vektar, who was still kneeling, still staring at nothing. She extended her hand, the universal gesture of respect between combatants. Vektar looked at her hand, looked at her face, and something in his expression shifted, cracked, reformed into something new. Something that might have been understanding or respect or just complete bewilderment at how his entire worldview had been overturned in less than 10 minutes. Slowly, carefully, he reached out and took her hand. Vektar sat in Administrator Kulvos's office 3 hours later, his detention sentence quietly reduced to time served and a moderately painful fine. He looked smaller somehow, despite still being 8 feet of apex predator. His posture was different, less aggressive, more thoughtful, like someone who had just discovered that the fundamental assumptions underlying their entire existence might need revision. Jade was there too, sitting across from him, drinking another cup of that horrible coffee. Kilvos had her upper eyes closed again, the ones she used when dealing with situations that gave her headaches. I do not understand, Vektar said finally, his voice quiet. I have fought hundreds of opponents. Species stronger than yours, faster than yours, with natural weapons you do not possess. How is it possible? Jade took a sip of her coffee, considered her answer. You are from Kralth, right? 0.8 gravity? Vektar nodded slowly. Earth is 1.0, Jade said. Which means I have been carrying around 20% more body weight than you have, every single day of my life. My bones are denser. My muscles work harder just to move. My cardiovascular system is built for higher resistance. You are stronger in bursts. Sure, but I can keep going longer, much longer. She set down her coffee cup, leaned forward slightly. And Earth? Earth is mean. We have predators that hunt in packs, environmental conditions that swing from freezing to boiling, diseases that have been trying to kill us for millions of years. We evolved to outlast everything, to adapt, to endure, to just keep moving when everything else has collapsed. You are an apex predator from a world where strength wins. I am an endurance hunter from a world where stubbornness wins. Vector absorbed this, his amber eyes thoughtful. Your people, they are all like this. More or less, Jade said with a slight smile. Some are better fighters, some are worse, but yeah, generally speaking, we are tougher than we look. Way tougher. Kill those, made a sound that her translator rendered as resigned amusement. This information is going to spread, you realize. Every species on this station is going to reassess their evaluation of humanity. The political implications alone are going to keep the council busy for cycles. She was right, of course. Within a day, reports were filtering back to home worlds. Diplomatic channels were lighting up. Military advisors were running new threat assessments. Humans were not harmless. Humans were not weak. Humans were from a death world that made Kralth look like a vacation resort, and they had been quietly integrating into galactic society while everyone assumed they were no threat at all. The betting pool payouts caused 3 minor financial incidents and 1 Centaurian trader to retire early with what he described as unexpected windfalls. 2 days later, Vector prepared to leave the station. His ship was released from impound, his fines paid, his crew subdued and thoughtful. He stopped by the security checkpoint one last time, where Jade was back on duty, reviewing docking requests with that same expression of professional boredom. Officer Reeves, he said formally. She looked up, nodded. Champion Vector. I wanted to say, he paused, struggling with words that did not come naturally. You fought with honor. You showed me that strength takes many forms. I will not forget this lesson. Jade's expression softened slightly. Safe travels, champion. Try using the docking queue next time. It really does make everything easier. Vector actually smiled at that. A real smile, not a predator's threat display. I will consider it. He left, his crew following, and Jade turned back to her terminal. The station returned to its normal rhythm, or as normal as anything got on Meridian 7. Ships came and went, trade continued, disputes were resolved with only occasional violence, and then, right at the end of Jade's shift, a familiar situation developed. A Throlian cruiser, ignoring the docking queue, demanding immediate priority access to Bay 7 because their cargo was important and they were too significant to wait. Jade's finger hovered over the communication panel. Her expression did not change, but I swear I saw the tiniest hint of amusement in her eyes. Throlian vessel Silver Wing, negative on priority docking. You have 12 ships ahead of you in queue. Estimated docking time is 2 hours, Bay 15. Please proceed to holding pattern and await further instruction. There was a pause on the other end, a long pause, and I would bet credits to cargo space that someone on that Throlian ship was frantically searching the station records, pulling up security footage, and realizing exactly who they were talking to. Understood, officer, came the reply, remarkably polite, remarkably quick. Proceeding to holding pattern now. Our apologies for any confusion. Jade allowed herself a small smile. Thank you for your cooperation, Silverwing. Welcome to Meridian 7. And that, more or less, is how everyone learned that humans were not to be underestimated, that size is not everything, and that violating docking procedures on Station Meridian 7 was a really bad idea. Me? I kept the security footage. All of it. 'Cause someday when people ask how humanity went from being dismissed as harmless to being respected throughout the galaxy, I want to be able to show them the exact moment it happened. The moment Vexo the unyielding learned that humans do not yield either.